Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing what every budget drifter has done before, which is welding the diff on this 2000 Mustang GT. Let's get into today's video. So before we get into it, I just want to show you guys, based on the last video, what we have in the rear end, because a big part of removing these rear shafts so that I can get to the carrier would be to remove the brake setup. Now I already moved the brake setup, but I didn't explain why in the last video, and I'm going to do that now. Basically, if you have a drift car and you're going to be using a hydraulic e-brake, the best thing to do is to run it independently, which means the hydraulic e-brake would be the only setup that applies pressure to the rear brakes. Now I'm going to be buying drilled and slotted brake rotors, also upgraded brakes for the back, and then a complete hydraulic setup. So that's why I deleted it, and now the only thing that's hooked up in the front would be the two front brakes, which is fine for everyday driving and drifting and stuff like that. So it's just preparing it to be a full-fledged drift car. Now when we go to take these wheels off, I should only have to jack up the car, support it, pop these wheels off, pull the calipers out, open up the pumpkin, which is what I call the rear end, and remove the C-clips, and the shafts should pull right out. Then I should be able to just remove the carrier, take it to where I'm going to be welding it, weld it up, and that should be it. So let's get started. First thing we got to do is loosen all these lug nuts, jack up the car, support it with some jack stands, and open up that pumpkin. Alright, so now we're up under the vehicle. It's jacked up. I have some jack stands on both sides of the wheels underneath, just in case the jack stands fail. It drops straight onto the wheels and not onto me. I have a ratchet with a 13 on it. That's a 13s all around. Flathead to pry it, and two jugs just in case there's a lot of fluid in here. It's only supposed to be like 2 quarts, but just in case. So I'm gonna loose this thing, we're gonna drain it, we're gonna take the two C-clips out, push the shafts out a bit, pull the carrier out, and take it to be welded. Alright, so this is when the jug and the flathead comes into play. So you leave one bolt at the top so it holds it stops the plate from coming off, but right where this is gonna leak out, I don't even have a jug big enough to catch all of it one time, but this fluid looks nasty. Let me continue prying it just a bit. Oh yeah, this looks nasty. Oh god, it's gonna go everywhere. Definitely not something you want spilling in your driveway. Still spilled it. Yeah, it's definitely not supposed to look brown like that. So we'll be changing the fluid. Definitely. Take the plate off. And those are your gears. Give you a better look. This is what we are coming for. We want to take this carrier out. It's held in by 4 bolts. And the shafts go in on each side. When we get it out, we want to take off this big ring gear just to make sure we don't get any welding slag on it. And these gears came out of the Marauder. I had them welded before, but they were welded with a very weak machine, so that was my issue why they came loose again. But we're going to be using a much stronger machine today, so I'm going to take the C-clips out of the shafts, push the shafts in a bit, or at least let me see if I could do it. Oh man, but I have to roll this over. There's a lot of stuff that has to be done, but when I get the carry out, I'll give you guys a better look at it. All right, so I have done a lot. The axles popped out of the side. Also, I removed the ring gear from the carrier. This is the carrier here. You want to leave the pin, or at least put the pin back in, just so the gears don't move around. But like I said, you can see where I've welded it with something weaker before, because that's some slag from it. But the key to this is welding the 4 of these gears together and then welding them to the case. And that'll be it. You just do it on both sides and then it'll be full lock. So I'm gonna go carry this to be welded and come back to install it. All right, so forgot my camera home, so I'll be using my phone camera, and I gotta spray this thing down. Try to get all of the oil off of it. We're using a brake cleaner, so just gonna try to get this thing clean as possible. Flip it over for me. I'll lay it flat. Oh yeah.
Going to welding.
Be it. Just let it dry. So like I said, basically we're going to be welding the 4 gears together, flipping it over, doing the same thing on the next side, and then welding the gears to the cage. So here is the final product. Definitely, like I always say, not the prettiest thing, but very consistent welds along the cage, so the gears won't move at all. And if you look at the top right here, the pin can still get in with no problem. So time to take this thing home and get it installed. The sad part about welding the diff at this point in time is that we can't test it until we get the car running, but we're just going to continue like we always do, making this thing better each day. Let's get into installing this thing. Like I said, this is the final product, and you can see the welds. We welded the gears together and then welded the gears to the cage, so all of the spider gears won't move independently anymore, which means when the shafts get locked into the 2 big gears that sit on the side, they will spin just as many times as the carrier spins. So it's a welded diff. On the other side, we didn't weld as much because, you know, the welder we were using is much stronger. So once one side is completely welded, the other, we just put some a short bead on it, and that should be good. So I'm gonna install this thing, clean up the cover, and just get ready to put this thing back in. Oh my god, finally installed. That pin is a lot harder to go in now, just because all the gears don't move. They usually move to allow the pin some wiggle room, but they don't. So now what you're gonna get is, when you roll the drive shaft, the two ends will move at the exact same time, same speed. Ugh. Very good. Woo. All right. Welded diff installed. All right, so rear cover is on. Welded carrier is inside my Ford 8.8, and the rear live axle is now fully locked in place. So once the drive shaft spins, the two wheels are going to spin forward or back at the exact same speed. Now I'm going to put the wheels on and probably just leave it up in the air, because I got to give this silicone that I put on this cover probably an hour or two to get pretty set up, and then I'm going to fill it with the rear end oil, or the gear oil I should say. And it is that easy, guys. You just weld those spider gears together and you're ready to do some slides and some skids, and you won't be looking like garbage or looking like a loser with one wheel spinning, because that's absolutely no fun. But thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll catch you guys on the next one.